Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. My name is Temi. In today's tutorial, we're going to be learning how to cut and sew this trendy baggy Ankara short. If this seems like something you're interested in, do not forget to watch to the end of the video. Please do well to like, share, and subscribe. For my returning viewers, thank you so much for always tuning in. And for my new viewers, you're in the right place. So without wasting much time, let's get started with today's tutorial. Welcome back guys. So on my table, I have my ruler, my chalk, I have my scissor. Then for my elastic band, I have it to be 1.5 inch. Then I'm going to be making use of my tape, and I have 2 meters of my Ankara fabric. So first of all, I went ahead to fold my fabric into two, and what I measured here was my waist plus an extra 12 inches. So as you can see, that is what I have. From the top of my fabric, I'll go ahead to rule out a straight line. So this line will be standing as the waistline, okay? Next, I'm going to go up by 2 inches, which is what my band will be. Then from my waist, I went down to 8 inches, which is my hip line. I'll repeat the same marking here and I'll root this out. So this 8 inches is for my hip line. I took it by minusing the 2 inches for the band, okay? I'm also going to create a starting line here just to give us room for our side. So after marking, the next thing I'll do is to get my crotch measurement. I'll be marking my crotch measurement from my waist without minusing the band. So now my crotch measurement is 9.75. So from my waist, I'll go down by adding an extra 2 to 3 inches for my crotch extension because we don't want this to be too tight. So I went ahead to mark 12 inches right here, and I'll rule out a straight line. So this is my crotch measurement. Now I'll put my tape outwards from the waistline and I'll mark the full length. So my full length will be 16, but I'm going to mark 17 inches. So I'll mark the same thing right here and I'll rule it out. I'll just label this the waist, my hip line, my crotch, and my full length. So guys, the next thing to do is to divide my hip measurement by 4, and I'm also going to go ahead to add some few inches depending on how wide I want this to be. So I went ahead to mark 13 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it on the crotch line as well, and I'll rule this line out. Now we're going to go ahead and extend the lines because we need to get our crotch line. So on my crotch line, I'm going to go ahead to mark my crotch extension. What you need to do there is calculate your crotch extension by dividing your hip circumference by 20. So what I got there was about 1.95, which is approximately 2 inches. Then I went ahead to add 0.5 inches. So I marked 2.5 inches for my crotch measurement. I hope you understand this calculation. If not, please leave a comment. I'll definitely explain better. So now I'm just going to go ahead and add my allowance. On the bottom, I added 1.5 inch for hemming. On the side, I'm marking 0.5 inch. On my crotch line as well, I'm doing the same thing by adding 0.5 inch. On the top of my fabric, I added 0.5, and also on the side, I added 0.5. This is why I advise that we leave at least a space there from the beginning. So now we're going to cut out our piece and move forward to cutting out the back pattern. So what I did here was fold my fabric into two, then I placed my front on it to get the proper measurement that I need. But now on top, I'm going to leave about 2 inches because we need to raise the back crotch line. So after marking my 2 inches upwards, the next thing to do is to mark my hip line at 8 inches, my crouch measurement, which is 12 inches, which you're starting from the waistline, not outside the waistline, okay? And then my full length, which is 17. So I'll just repeat the same marking on this other side, and I'll proceed to just rule out the lines. So after marking, I'm just going to go ahead and rule out a line right here so we can have space to add our 0.5 inch allowance. The next thing now is to mark my body point. So you remember in the front we used about 13 inches, but for the back I'll be making use of 14 inches. This is because the back is usually bigger than the front piece, okay? So I marked 14 inches on my crouch, my hip, and my waist, and I connected the point. The next thing to do is to take our crouch extension for the back, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 8 and I'm going to mark what I got there. So I got about 4.8, but I decided to actually use 4.5. So I'll just connect this into the hem of my pants and I'll make a curve for my crouch extension. The next thing to do now is to raise the back by about 1.5 inch, and after doing so you're going to go ahead and mark what you have on your front piece. For my waist I had about 14 inches, and this is exactly what I'm making sure that I have right here, and I'm just going to connect slantedly into the 1.5 inch that we marked on the center back. So if you're wondering why we are doing this and raising up the back extension, this is because your back is fuller. You have your butt that needs to sit properly and not gape at the back, okay? So now I'm just going to go ahead and add 0.5 inches here. This is for joining my piece to the waistband. I'll also add 0.5 on my sides. Then on my full length as well, I'll add 1.5 just as we did in the front, okay? Then on the crouch line, I'm going to be adding 0.5 inch. I'll also add it to the sides, and we're going to proceed to just trace out the lines and cut out the back piece. Before cutting out the back, this is how my pattern pieces look. You can see on the crouch it's a bit bigger and also it's higher than the front. Now I'm going to cut out my piece. So after cutting, this are my back pieces and this is my front piece. Next thing to do is to work on my pockets because I'm going to be having pockets for my pieces. So to cut out the pockets, I just went ahead to cut out this long piece, and what I'm going to be doing is placing them below my front piece. So I have 2 pieces for the pockets and I'm going to place my front piece on it like so. The next thing to do is to go to the waistline, and I'm going to be taking the measurement before the 1/2 inch. I'm going to place my tape at 1 inch, and this is going to be my pocket opening. And for the wideness of my pocket, I wanted to stop about 5 inch. So I went ahead to mark 5 inch, and I'm just going to connect the points. So after connecting, I'm going to pin this down and I'm going to cut out the sides that I just marked. So when you separate your pieces, you're gonna have to fold your pockets. This depends on the width that you want for your pockets. So for the width of my pocket, I'm going to be making use of about 9 inch. Then I'm going to cut out all the excess. I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side. After setting my pocket aside, I'll proceed by joining the pieces. So this is the two pieces for my front, and that side is my pocket. So now we'll be stitching around the crouch line. We'll stitch by the allowance we gave, which is half an inch. I'll do the same thing on my back piece. I'll stitch all around the crotch by half an inch. After stitching my front piece, this is how it looks. The next thing is to join my pockets. I place my fabric right sides on each other, and I'm going to be stitching by half an inch. So after stitching my pocket, this is how it looks. What I'll do is to notch all the necessary parts. I'll notch the same thing on the other side, and I'll flip it over like so. I'll go ahead to the machine and run a top stitch right here. So I'll stitch all around that side as close as possible. I'll repeat the exact same thing here by notching and flipping it over, and I'll also go ahead to give it a top stitch. And this is how it looks. Now I'm going to be joining the pocket. What I did was just fold it into two, and I'm going to be stitching all around these edges. I'll repeat the same thing here by folding it into two and stitching the edges. I'm going to be using half an inch. After stitching in the pocket, this is how it looks. The next thing now is to start joining my front piece to the back piece. So I went ahead to join the crotch for the back piece, and I'm going to place them side by side, and I'm going to stitch by my allowance, which is half an inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the side as well. I'll also go ahead to align the crotch line, and I'm going to be stitching by half an inch. So I'll stitch from one center side into the other. After stitching, this is how it looks. So now I'm going to go ahead and measure what I have all around my waist. So from the center of my waist, I'm going to start by taking all the measurement around. So after getting what I have on my waist, I'm going to be using this to cut out my waistband. I have about 57. So now I went ahead to cut out my waistband, and I went ahead to also iron it to give me a fold. So when you open up, you can see that I went ahead to iron half inch on both sides, and for the width I have it to be 5 inches, and on fold it's going to be 2 inches. Then for the full length that I have, which is going to be 57 plus my 1 inch allowance. So this is what I have here. Now I'm going to fold this into two to get the center point. So I'm just going to use my chalk to mark the center point. Then I'll bring in my piece, and I'm going to go ahead and align the center to the center of my pant as well. I'm just going to use my pin to just hold it down all around the waist. After pinning down, I'm going to go ahead and stitch all around the half inch, and this is how it looks. So we're going to be using this part to cover up the band. But before that, I want to insert an eyelet for my loops, and to get the placement from my center front, I marked out 1 inch on both sides. So now I'm going to be using my eyelet machine to cut out the holes and also to insert my eyelets. After poking the holes, this is how it looks. The next thing is to go ahead and insert my eyelets on those holes that we poked. So after inserting, this is how it looks. The next thing now is to go ahead and stitch all around the waistline, and also to leave about 2 inches to pass the elastic. So for the elastic, I have it to be about 1.5 inch, and for the length, I have 27 inches, which is my waist measurement minus 4. And I also went ahead to add my stitching allowance. The next thing to do is to insert my elastic through the 2 inches that we left. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert my elastic all around. Before stitching the elastic together, just make sure that your band is sitting properly on the waistline to avoid folding. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and close up this edge. After closing, this is what I have, and now I'm going to finish up the waist. So as you can see, this is how beautifully the pants are sitting. The next thing to do is to insert the ropes through the eyelet holes. So I just went ahead to cut out a piece and I folded it into halves. So for the full length of this rope, I have it to be about 82 inches. I'll then proceed to insert it through those eyelet holes. So guys, this is how the ropes look. The next thing to do is to now hem the bottom of our pants. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it in halves and I'm going to stitch all around. So this is how it looks, and we're done with sewing off this beautiful shirt. I hope today's tutorial was very helpful. If so, do not forget to like, share. Please do well to leave your comments below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.